He got some Simon with war fronts. He's going to tell us about what's going on. Tell us about what is going on in the Sudan war. It's basically Muslims slaughtering Muslims and Christians, and Muslims slaughtering Muslims and Christians just getting slaughtered by both. It's pretty gnarly what's going on there, and basically nobody talks about it. Nux has made a few videos, but they are few and far between because there's just so much American stuff going on that it doesn't get talked about much. Like, there's so much stuff going on here in America that stuff going on in Africa in the middle of nowhere doesn't get brought up a whole lot. It's just the way shit is. But Simon dropped a video, thankfully, so we're going to find out what is new in the world of Sudan, how bad it is getting over there. Always hit the like button, like and sub to me. Go like and sub to Simon. I will definitely be dropping his information down below. He's got 1 million fucking channels. Once you sub to one, you'll start getting all the other ones, like Decoding the Unknown. That's one of my favorite ones. I really like that one because basically he reads a script about some kind of mystery, and then he interjects his very realist opinion the entire time. It's very funny, though. And then he's got Places. We're at war fronts. He's also got home fronts. He's got a bunch of other ones like side projects. I listen to a lot of side projects falling asleep. He's got a lot of like 50 facts or 50 whatever, 50 something. It's so much. It's just something to fall asleep to. He's got a very calming voice. It helps me get to sleep. It's nice. Learn something while you're falling asleep. Into the Shadows, that's another one of his. Mega Projects, that's a great one. Such a good one. Sorry. Got a little bit into the weeds. But yeah, go like some of Simon's stuff. Go get into the Simon videos. He is great, even though he is a little on the posh side for me. We'll say. But he's great. He's great. I like to argue with him, so we might be arguing at times. I'm arguing with a recording, but you know what I mean.
In a 3-month period between the end of last year and the beginning of this one, the world witnessed 2 of the largest acts of mass killing in modern history. One you're likely deeply familiar with. Across a single weekend in January, Iranian security forces turned their guns onto protesters in cities and towns across the nation. While an ongoing blackout has made it hard to get exact figures, it's currently estimated that somewhere between 7,000 and 35,000 people were murdered, a pace and scale of killing that would far
upwards of 45. And that was just in those 48 hours.
Outstrip even the Srebrenica massacre in 1995. Like Srebrenica, though, the Iranian protest killings at least caught the world's attention. Better or worse, the Islamic Republic has not been out of the news since. The same can't be said of the other recent massacre, the atrocities that accompanied the fall of al-Fashr in Sudan to the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, in October last year. As in Iran, hard figures on those killed in al-Fashr are almost impossible to come.
Yeah, we actually covered that with Nux. Nux was caught talking about that when the fall happened. Remember the satellite images that we went over with the blood spots and what looked to be bodies in piles? I remember that. I didn't forget.
By at the lower ends, the UN estimates that 6,000 died in just 3 days.
Yeah.
The briefing to the British Parliament, meanwhile, estimated that 60,000 had died in 6 weeks. At the most apocalyptic end of that spectrum, the executive director of Yale Research Labs told the New York Times that, quote, between 30,000 and 100,000 may have been killed in 6 weeks, with 60,000 as a plausible midpoint.
That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people, guys. My entire town is 20,000 people. The town I live in currently has 20,000 people in it. So 5 of my entire town at the high end. That's fucking insane. That is so many fucking people.
End quote. If confirmed, those upper-bound figures would make the fall of al-Fasher the single bloodiest action to take place this century,
Satellite
comparable
videos,
only
that's
in
all
speed and
fucking...
scale to the height of the Rwanda genocide.
That's blood and bodies, blood and bodies, blood and bodies, blood and bodies, blood and bodies. At one point, they were using people trying to flee one of the cities that they had blockaded. I saw this. They had... Originally, they were built for defense, but they were like sand berms around the city. And when people were trying to leave, because they had blockaded the city, and they forced them to have no water and no food, so people would try to escape, as they would come over the berm, they would get shot with sniper rifles from the people that were blockading the city, just using them as target practice.
By way of comparison, it took nearly 21 months of bombardment for the Gaza death toll to hit 60,000. The Rapid Support Forces may have speed-run that number in a tenth of the time, and yet somehow this atrocity slipped from the headlines. While the world initially did sit up and take notice, the widespread shock at the massacre failed to translate into lasting action. And really, this is the story of Sudan's entire war, a war that began exactly 3 years ago on April the 15th, 2023, and quickly became the worst conflict on the face of the earth. The facts associated with the war are hard to even wrap your head around. Perhaps 400,000 dead, up to 14 million forced to flee their homes, over 60% of the population facing a severe food crisis. At some point, figures like this just become impossible for a normal person to compute, so our brains simply label them as, oh wow, that's really bad, unable to react in any sane way to such horrors. And look, we could go on. We could mention the entire cities that have been depopulated and burned, the torture centers.
Yeah, that's the thing, guys. It doesn't matter how many videos and pictures we see. Like, it's so hard to even comprehend that many dead people. Even the town that I grew up in, of, what was it, like 45,000? Because I grew up in a bigger town closer to the city. Like, it's still all of them gone. The entire fucking thing just gone. All of them. And it's so hard to comprehend, like, an entire football stadium worth of people. All of Jerry's World just fucking gone.
Discovered in RSF-held territory into which countless civilians have disappeared, or perhaps the recent report from Médecins Sans Frontières, which documented the epidemic of violence being carried out against women and girls in Darfur. A report which catalogued at least 41 instances of RSF fighters and their allies girls under the age of 5. We could mention too the fact that al-Fasher is not the war's first mass killing.
He bleeped out the word rape, by the way. I don't care about monetization, so it doesn't matter to me. He bleeped out the word rape. They were raping little girls under the age of 5. And you guys wonder why I have an issue with Muslims.
10 and 15,000 were also massacred in 2 separate atrocities in the city of El Janina back in 2023. Or perhaps we could note the growing belief that the RSF's ethnically targeted killings of black groups such as the Masalit or Sakawa in Darfur likely constitutes a genocide. By now, though, you probably get the point. The war in Sudan is just on a different scale to any other modern conflict. While the war in Ukraine may also have produced staggering casualties, the difference is that, with the exception of the siege of Mariupol,
there are people trying to say that those are war crimes. Them using the drones to blow up soldiers that are in the field. That's a war crime. They're trying to surrender by putting their hands up. I'm like, and? They're only surrendering because they're about to get blown up and die. Like, if they weren't about to get blown up and die, they wouldn't be surrendering. So, fuck yourself.
In the war's opening weeks, those dying at scale are mostly soldiers and mercenaries. In Sudan, most of the dead are thought to be civilians. Among 21st century conflicts, perhaps only the Tigray War can equal its horrors. However, the point of this video is not to bury you beneath a mountain of depressing statistics.
Too late, we're already there.
Talking about Sudan, that is at least somewhat inevitable. No, with this piece, we're hoping to do 3 things. One, to use our small platform here on YouTube to try and remind the world on the war's 3rd anniversary that this conflict is still happening, because it seems insane to us that something of this scale is being overlooked. 2, to briefly stretch out the background of the conflict for anyone watching who's encountering this story for the first time. And 3, to try and ask perhaps the most fundamental question of all: why do so few people seem to care? And let's start with the basics. How this conflict got started.
Where it is, its location. There's not a whole lot of video and stuff coming out of there because of, again, its location. It's the middle of Africa, guys. It's literally like the middle of fucking Africa. I think it might have a little bit connected to the ocean. Let's check. I can always freaking edit this out later. Sudan. Yeah, it's got a little bit that's touching the Red Sea, but most of it is fucking desert, you guys. Let's go topographical. Topographic map. Yeah, guys, it's fucking desert. Oh, there's some green here. A little bit of green. That's more green than this other one shows. Well, you're not gonna fucking even... This one's better. This little fucking... A lot of mountains. A lot of mountains, a lot of fucking... Not a lot of stuff. It shows green, but I don't think it is. Up in the mountains. The Nile starts up in the mountains. So, Nile Basin, yeah. I don't think it's got a whole lot of agricultural stuff for it to do. So, yeah, it does not look like it, guys. So, not a whole lot of exports coming out of Sudan. Unfortunately for the Sudanese people. Bullets and body bags.
At its heart, the war is the result of a power struggle between 2 armed factions. The RSF, led by a warlord known as Hemeti, and the
Muslims.
Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, currently under the leadership
More
of
Muslims.
General al-Burhan. While the SAF are Sudan's official military, former dictator Omar al-Bashir was leery of giving the army too much of a monopoly on weapons in case it decided to use those weapons to remove him from power. So he began to promote
was a great
an
idea.
alternative. The Rapid Support Forces. Emerging out of the Janjaweed militias that carried out the original Darfur genocide at the turn of the century, the RSF is made up mostly of nomadic Arab herders. Although the group struck an alliance in 2025 with the Nuba militia SPLMN, which is mostly based in Sudan's south, the main base of support for the paramilitaries has always been among the Arab tribes of Darfur. During its heyday in the 2010s, the RSF was responsible not just for crushing rebellions at home, but was often deployed on missions abroad. Most notably, the group took part in the joint Saudi-UAE campaign in Yemen, which helped make them favorites over in Abu Dhabi. Really, though, the group's main job was to act as counterbalance to the army to make sure the generals never removed al-Bashir from power. All of which makes what happened next bitterly ironic. Given this is a brief overview in a short video, we're not going to go into all the details. If you want more depth, we published a 72-minute deep dive on the conflict back in November that can be found in our archive should that interest you. But the basic version
It was really
is that
good.
after decades of oppressive rule and economic mismanagement, the streets rose up against al-Bashir in 2019. The dictator expected either the army or the RSF to crush the revolution. Instead, both joined with the protesters to remove him from power. In the immediate aftermath, there was a rush of optimism. A power-sharing structure was initially set up with the RSF and SAF granted seats at the table alongside a civilian element. The plan was that this temporary arrangement would pave the way for full civilian rule. But given that this is a video on Sudan's Civil War and not Sudan's lovely transition to democracy, you can probably guess what happened next, can't you?
Yeah.
As the deadline for civilian rule approached, the SAF and RSF decided the whole governing lark would be much easier without any civilians at all. And
Yeah,
so removed them
fucking
in the 2021
shocker.
coup. barely had democracy's death rattles died away than tensions began to bubble up between the army and the paramilitaries over issues like the integration of the RSF under military command. Despite multiple attempts at negotiation, it soon became clear that a confrontation was brewing between General al-Burhan's troops and Hemedti's paramilitaries. Finally, on the 15th of April 2023, that conflict erupted right in the center of the capital of Khartoum. While their monopoly on air power was expected to give the SAF a swift, if bloody, victory, the RSF were able to use air defenses supplied by the Wagner Group to neutralize the threat. The paramilitaries then overran the capital, forcing al-Burhan and SAF leadership to flee to Port Sudan on the Red Sea coast. And so began what may well be the 21st century's worst war. Now, we do want to emphasize again that this is the extremely simplified version, the geopolitical equivalent of attempting to summarize Proust in under 15 seconds. We haven't even mentioned many of the other factors driving this nationwide implosion, such as the boiling resentments between the peripheries like Darfur and the riverine elite in Khartoum. Nor have we touched on the role of religion, with the RSF trying to portray itself as a secular force in contrast to the Islamist-linked SAF.
Except they're both Islamist.
Hopefully, it's at least enough of an overview to start broaching the bigger, more important question today. Why, after 3 years of intense fighting, do relatively few people seem to give a shit? And we're not being flip here. Over the course of the war, studies of media outlets and government statements have consistently found that Sudan is mentioned far less than Ukraine or Gaza. One study in 2024 found that the New York Times on average mentioned Ukraine 13 times more than it did Sudan. Another by the analytics firm Chart.
You know why? You know why? You know why? You know why? Because we're paying for that one. We're not paying for this one. We're paying for that one. We're not paying for this one. Sorry. It's just the cold hard facts, you guys. The media is going to talk about where our tax dollars are going. Because we know our tax dollars are going there, so we want to know what the fuck's going on with our tax dollars.
Beat for the war's first anniversary reported over 100,000 stories published each month.
And I'm not going to lie, you guys, most Americans are fucking masochists when it comes to this kind of shit. Like, we don't like it, but we want to watch it. Like, we're horrible. We're horrible people. Like, we know how wrong it is, but we don't care. We want to know. We want to see the Ukrainian people punching the fucking Russians in the nuts. We want to watch it.
By major news outlets covering Ukraine and Gaza. Sudan, by contrast, averaged a mere 600 stories per month. So the attention gap is very real, and figuring out why, something of a struggle.
Also, I'll be the racist. They're white people. It's black people on black people versus white people on white people. Yeah, they look a little goofy because they're like short, look like little gnomes, but other than that, like, no offense, gnome guys. It's not my fault y'all look like gnomes. It's like watching the dwarves having a little civil war.
One theory that often crops up is racism. All those dying in Sudan are people that we in the West would code as black, even if they themselves...
I guess Simon wanted to be racist too. Oh, he's going to have racism in the comments, I guarantee it.
...might identify differently. Proponents
You're
of
just
this
being
theory hold that
racist,
people in rich
Simon.
Western countries don't care about black or African lives, and so turn their attention elsewhere. The counterpoint, of course, is that we have plenty...
We do spend an inordinate amount of water making them wells that they break, apparently, because we got to keep making them over and over again. So, I mean, a little bit of saturation bias, maybe? Like, we're oversaturated with help the children in Africa! Help the children in Africa! Motherfucker, help yourselves once in a while!
...of historical evidence that the West does care when non-white people die.
Well, next, that's not my fucking problem every fucking 2 weeks.
Original Darfur genocide, carried out by the same militias that went on to form the RSF, became a cause célèbre in the US, and anyone who remembers the Haiti earthquake in 2010 will also remember the outpouring of giving that followed. Americans alone, ordinary Americans, not governments or institutions, donated
Yeah.
$1.4 billion from their pockets to help a nation that's 90.
You realize that's like $5 a person though, right? It's not really all that much to us. 1.4 billion is still like less than $10 a person.
5% black. And then there's Gaza. While most of us have probably memory holed it for now, there was a trend in progressive spaces in 2022 of claiming that people only cared about the Ukraine war because white people were dying. Here's a representative quote from NBC mid-days after the war began.
I'm not gonna lie, guys, I would love to have excess money and be able to say, I donated $5K to blah, 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 just for my taxes and do it on fucking stream for the fucking clout chase. I'll do that. Fuck yeah, I will. Like, there'll be some shit that you won't know about, but yeah, if I ever get fucking disposable money, I'll be fucking telling you guys where it fucking gets fucking sent for donations. I'll be donating to all the fucking starving people in fucking Haiti. I don't care. $5 grand? Sure. I'll help you guys out. You guys could use some food. You had a really bad earthquake. It's all about disposable money. There's a lot of people that have disposable money in America. Because there's a lot of people that get famous for stupid reasons.
The atrocities in Ukraine have garnered widespread coverage across the globe, but this reporting has unsheathed the flagrant racism.
Hell, I'm trying to get famous for a stupid reason. I'm a dumb stoner that hangs out in my room eating fucking Uncrustables. Like,
And biased attitudes toward the value, or the lack thereof, of non-European life. End quote. Which, if you were to only compare coverage of Ukraine and Sudan, might still sound plausible. But such a comparison would be utterly disingenuous given that the war which commanded the greatest share of attention in the 2020s took place in Gaza, a war in which those dying were not white Europeans, but Palestinians. All of which is a rather long-winded
terrorists.
way of saying that there are quite a lot of counterexamples to the idea that Sudan is off the world's radar simply because of race.
Motherfucker, fuck humanity. Maybe humanity fucked around too long and now they're finding out.
Now, that's not to say it's not playing any role, just that Biden-era vibes of blaming everything on white people's biases might be a little...
I'm sorry, guys, but we're animals. And we're always going to be animals. And like, I don't know what else you guys want from that. Like, we're a bunch of fucking animals. And we've all got that animalistic urge. You can deny it if you want, but we all have it.
little bit simplistic. So that leaves us with a couple of options to explain the attention gap. Perhaps the most convincing being that the conflict is simply too complex for the average layman to grasp. While the Ukraine war has a clear good guy in Kiev and a clear bad guy in Moscow, the Sudanese conflict is both chaotic and marked by atrocities on all sides. As we are at pains to point out,
You know what? I think it might have been Ukraine that the $200 million where the girls got bought from by Epstein. I seem to remember it correlating with the war, because that was one of the things that Putin was talking about.
the SAF may be fighting against a genocidal militia that enslaves and abuses women and girls, but that doesn't make them angels. SAF forces have repeatedly shelled civilian areas, hit crowded markets with airstrikes, and are aligned with armed Islamist groups that have carried out summary executions of prisoners. Are they preferable to the RSF? Yeah, 100%. Does it excuse their own well-documented war crimes? No, not even close, of course not. On top of those two main forces, there are also a kaleidoscope of armed militias like the Joint Forces who are allied
What shit, Michael? What don't you get? I can help you out.
with the SAF and the SPLMN, who are aligned with the RSF. Any detailed accounting of the war therefore requires a whole lot of background explanation, and that's before we get into the role of outside actors and their own complex motivations. Infamously, this includes the UAE supplying the RSF with weapons and equipment in return for plundered Sudanese gold, but it also includes other nations that facilitate the RSF, like Ethiopia, Chad, and eastern Libya under General Haftar. Then there are the countries that back the SAF, like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and increasingly Somalia. To make it all extra
Again, Muslims versus Muslims, and they're just both just killing Christians.
Penetrable, some of these nations have their own breakaway factions that back the other side. So, Ethiopia's federal government is tilting towards the RSF, while some of the Tigrayan rebels in the country's north are fighting alongside the Sudanese military. Somalia, meanwhile, is leaning toward the SAF, largely because of fears that RSF allies like Ethiopia are a threat to its territorial integrity. Now, if you didn't follow all of that, you ain't alone, hence why some think there's such a lack of interest in this war. Explaining all of this to viewers distracted by everything else is a rather tall order.
Yeah, it is pretty hard to comprehend it all.
People just start to switch off, like you might have done in that previous paragraph. And that brings us to a related possibility that there's just simply too much else going on right now. I mean, 2026 alone has seen Venezuela's president get kidnapped, Iran massacre its own protesters, America threatens...
Whoa! 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 Whoa. He did not get kidnapped. He was arrested. Sir. See, I told you we would argue eventually. I'd find something to argue with him about. Maduro was arrested, not kidnapped. There is a difference. Damn it. Motherfucking Simon.
Annex Greenland, Pakistan and Afghanistan go to war, cartels paralyze swaps.
And then Trump stopped that war.
Oh my God. The US and Israel attack Iran, and Israel invades southern Lebanon, all alongside the still ongoing war in Ukraine.
That's just to kill terrorists. They got a lot of terrorists to deal with. That's why I don't mind giving them money. They're just killing terrorists. Calm down, everybody.
Ukraine, plus other majorly important geopolitical stuff like the elections in Hungary. At some point, it just becomes exhausting, even for people like us who do this for a living, to follow it all. For the average person sat at home also worrying about their jobs, their mortgages, their
Luckily,
lives.
I don't have to.
I mean, is it really any wonder that we might not have
I just sit at home and
for the conflict in Sudan? But while this is on
ingest bullshit on the internet. Oh, God, I'm turning into a fucking slop potato, you guys. I ingest any more slop, I may turn into a literal slop potato.
undoubtedly true, it doesn't explain the lack of engagement from diplomats and world leaders, people who are supposed to care about this sort of. Because on an institutional level, our elites are doing a piss-poor job on Sudan. In the US, the Trump administration has appointed a former businessman, Mossad Bolos, to end the war, a man that Sudan expert Cameron Hudson described as, quote, a person so clearly unqualified for the position he is in.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, Bolos has turned out to be just as good at negotiating an end to the war in Sudan as Steve Witkoff has been at negotiating an end to the war in Ukraine. Europe, meanwhile, is taking the admittedly creative step of holding a peace conference in Berlin, to which neither the SAF nor the RSF have been invited. As there's a sarcastic clap, by the way. As for the UK, the government has refused to prescribe the RSF a legal designation that would place the paramilitaries alongside Hezbollah, the Wagner Group, and Palestine Action, making it a criminal offense to support them via any means. This despite recent investigations by The Guardian uncovering RSF recruitment networks based in London and high-level propagandists for the group operating out of cities like Sheffield. Another sarcastic clap for the UK. But this isn't just a tale of institutional failure in
they've
the
been
West.
coming up
It's failure all across the world.
They've been, Just everywhere you go. Every video you watch, somebody's talking shit about the UK. Doesn't matter where you go anymore. Man, way to go, Keir. You really fucking just... Britain sucks.
The UN did nothing to stop the killings.
Restore Britain! Make Britain great again!
At Al Fasher, despite experts warning for months that the RSF was likely to commit war crimes if they overran the city. The African Union has been utterly absent, unwilling to take any action to stop a genocide happening on its own continent. The Quad group of nations leading peace negotiations, comprising the US, UAE, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, has become effectively non-functional as the rivalry between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi becomes ever more acute. And this really gets one of the biggest problems facing peace efforts in Sudan. Far too many rich or influential nations are far too invested in the war to stop it. For the
Well,
UAE,
fucked
an
up.
RSF victory is becoming essential to their strategic vision for the MENA region, one in which they
Like, did you not hear how many people were backing each side, guys? Like, 4 countries on one side and 4 countries on the other side, and they're both backing the people fighting over the territory in the middle. Yeah, there's a lot of people invested in who wins.
act as patrons to a web of secular or at least non-Islamist forces. This has made Saudi Arabia.
Except they're both Islamist forces, which is the fucked up part. Like, but they're different types. There's Sunni Muslims and there's Shia Muslims. I'm not sure. I don't give a shit enough to know. But like, there's different types of Muslims, and they fight all the time.
Egypt even more determined to deny them victory. And as these two blocs harden, they're drawing in more and more regional players, with Israel and Ethiopia drawing closer to the Emirates, while Turkey and Pakistan side with the Saudis. That is a lot of powerful nations now invested in the outcome of Sudan's war, all of which makes it harder and harder to do anything about it. Sure, in a sane world, there would be a concerted effort to disrupt the Emirati network supplying the RSF, but America wants to maintain its alliance network in the Gulf, while major European nations like France sell Abu Dhabi weapons. Well, I'm sure if you sat down with President Macron or Marco Rubio, they'd agree that the Sudan war is awful.
That's also partly why it's being kept all quiet, because there may or may not be American bullets being fired over there. So, yeah. Like, shh. One side may or may not be getting bullets that were started up and made over here. Just be quiet about that. Don't tell nobody.
They'd probably also admit that it wasn't a top strategic priority, that the Middle East for them takes precedence over the civil war engulfing this one Northeast African country. And in a grim...
Be honest, guys, it's probably American weapons on both sides. Because they sold them to the people that are backing each side, so they're selling the guns to them, and then they're sending them to the people on each side that are fighting against each other. So it's just American bullets fucking killing both sides. We're just helping to manage the world's population.
way.
Syntopia tomorrow, guys. Syntopia tomorrow.
This may ultimately be the answer to our question today. Perhaps the reason so few seem to care about Sudan is that it appears to them unimportant. To paraphrase Neville Chamberlain, they see it as simply a quarrel in a faraway country between people of whom they know nothing. Chamberlain, of course, was talking about the Sudetenland in 1938, the annexation of which by Nazi Germany would soon turn those unimportant events into the biggest crisis Britain has ever faced. Now, only a fool would suggest that Sudan's conflict will reach World War II's levels of global impact, but it would be equally foolish for the world to keep on dismissing it. As events in the Middle East have recently shown,
nobody's
our
dismissing
interconnected world
anything,
is
Simon.
full of pressure points where even the slightest increase in tension could cause effects on the other side of the planet. So a narrow strait of water being shut in the Middle East can cause gas prices to spike in Iowa or an LNG crisis in India. Well, Sudan sits alongside one of the world's most important shipping channels, the Red Sea, and now nations that are pillars of the Gulf or the Horn of Africa are becoming increasingly entwined in its war, with all the risk that entails. In short, a further collapse of Sudan into instability could have knock-on effects that spread far beyond its borders in ways that we can't yet fully predict. It may be fashionable right now for the world to ignore this most devastating of wars, but that doesn't mean the consequences won't one day affect us all. Thank you for watching.
You're very welcome, Simon. Thank you for making the video. Very well done, sir. And thank you, Morris, for writing it. I saw that. All right. That was Sudan, guys. Very fucked up situation. Very, very fucked up. Hopefully it gets settled soon, but it's not going to. There's going to be a lot more death and a lot more destruction. Because, yeah, when you got, like I said, 4 countries on each side that are very highly invested in the outcome, it's not going to end well for anybody. Later.